The most common, forgotten, and neglected roadblock to achieving lasting weight loss is stressing you out. It's stressing me out just giving you guys the information about it, because the reality is cortisol, the stress hormone, is one of the things that it just kind of gets slipped underneath. Everyone's talking about insulin, everyone's talking about inflammation, and rightfully so. Very, very big deals. But cortisol is a very powerful hormone. And if you have chronic stress, if you have issues going on in your life, regardless of what the stress is, there is a stress threshold. And we're gonna crack the code in this video, teaching you guys what to do, what to understand, and most importantly, how to not let stress get in the way of your lasting weight loss. We'll see you guys in the video.
Let's start with cortisol. Somebody had requested cortisol, FLOA. We're more of the fasting, right? But I think just addressing cortisol overall, and then we'll transition over to PCOS. Cortisol, as you guys know, very much likely that you're familiar with the fact that it's associated as being the stress hormone. And that's really what it's the hormone that gets released in times of stress. Obviously, the physical stressful situation, in reality, you really would want cortisol to do what it does. What it does is it pumps out a bunch of glucose, throws a bunch of sugar in the bloodstream, which is there to fuel you and your body during an actual time of stress. But as you can imagine, if that was happening occasionally, that wouldn't be a big deal. But chronic stress is the issue that people run into. And so chronic stress causes chronic blood sugar spikes, which chronic blood sugar spikes, obviously detrimental to our success. And you could be doing everything perfectly, and literally stress alone, cortisol spikes alone, can derail your success. So this is why one of my pillars, although I don't talk about it as much because it's not as common of the main roadblock for everybody's insulin resistance inflammation, it's important to understand that cortisol and chronic stress can be an issue. Now, whoever asked this question, I'll give you guys a chance to elaborate, but I know you were talking about cortisol and fast. And so just wanted to put it all together to just understand the basics of cortisol. Cortisol is not always bad. In fact, a 24-hour rhythm of cortisol, you're supposed to have a high pull of cortisol in the morning. You actually have a nice big pulse of cortisol in the morning. That's one of the reasons why in the morning you generally are not as hungry, because cortisol is released right before you wake up. That's part of what gets you up in the morning. And then cortisol decreases as the day progresses. And so one of the benefits of the sunlight that you guys have seen me in my lives, getting sunlight in the morning, strengthening the circadian rhythm and that internal biological clock, is one of the benefits of sunlight in the morning. But strengthening the cortisol pulse in the morning is also a nice effect of sunlight. So fasting is a stressor. So now we're going to bring it back to fasting. Fasting is a stressor. So is weight training. Weight training is a stressor. Cutting out all carbohydrates, going strict keto is a stressor too as well. Anything that your body's not used to doing, anything that your body hasn't adapted to, anything that your body hasn't become accustomed to, is a stressor. And stress, as you know, is not always bad. In fact, stress is, in my opinion, needed by the body. A certain amount of controlled stress, especially if we know that this particular stress has a positive outcome on the other side of it. And everybody knows weight training is a really good stressor because we know what happens when you do it properly. You don't overdo it, right? Too much weight training creates too much breakdown and not enough, doesn't allow for the response that we want, which is muscular growth. So weight training is a great example that we can all think of. Controlled stress, you can overdo it and you won't get the results. Fasting is a little bit trickier to think of it like that, but it is like that. You're not breaking down muscle fibers, but what you're doing is you're challenging your body to both mobilize and utilize the fat as its energy source when you're not eating. That's the stressor. So you're taxing your fat burning systems and your internal fat burning mechanism within your body, within your metabolism. We call that skill fat adaptation, and we also call that skill metabolic flexibility. When you are insulin resistant, you have a very low amount of, well, you're very metabolically unflexible or inflexible, and you lose that fat adaptation. This is one of the effects of insulin resistance, which is why you have all the fat on your body, yet you're tired. It's like, that shit doesn't make sense. Like, why do I have this fat on my body and I'm still tired? Why am I fat and hungry? It makes no sense either, because when you're not insulin resistant and you have a massive day or two of calories, normally what ends up happening is the next day you're not hungry because your body has a nice balance, because it just got this excess of calories that it's stored as fat and it's ready to go. It's ready to tap into that. But you lose that ability when you lose metabolic flexibility. So bringing it back to fasting, the only time the cortisol spike from fasting times, well, the cortisol spike from fasting is an issue, is a concern, is when your body's already too stressed out. And then we also have the separate thing of just women in particular, certain times of the cycle, which you guys have heard me talk a lot about that. So we'll just briefly brush through that. Day 13 to 15 during ovulation and day 18 to 28 during the progesterone phase. Those are times where women's bodies are sensitive to the spike of cortisol, the stress of fasting. Now, if you don't have an issue and you feel fine, don't worry about it. But if you do feel an issue fasting during those times, and if it's day 13 and 15, just shift in weight because it's only 2 days, right? 2 or 3 days. The progesterone phase is obviously a 10-day cycle. So you're probably going to have to skip that week's fasting. What I've noticed in that particular category is that when you're on AOD or you're on a growth hormone releasing peptide, the stress of fasting is significantly decreased because that's what AOD does. AOD mobilizes body fat. So I've noticed women, even early on in this program, are able to fast much more than what other, like Dr. Minnie Pels, if you know her, who really, that's where I learned this whole concept from, feels like the majority, in her experience, the majority of women can't do what you guys are doing, and you guys can get away with it, most of you, because of AOD or because of the growth hormone peptides. So that's one category where cortisol is a concern potentially. So you want to become aware of that. And then you have autoimmune patients. If you have an autoimmune disease and then you're in a flare-up, that's a really stressful time. And even if you're not in a flare-up, just having an autoimmune disease makes you a little bit more stress sensitive. And in those situations, just be aware, pay attention to your body, that the stress tolerance is, the stress threshold, if you will, is lower. Doesn't mean you can't always fast. It just means you have a lower threshold of overall stress. And then the final piece of it is, as you guys know, life is very dynamic. You have weeks where everything's going great. Relationships are going awesome. Work is going great. You're super happy. And then you have 1 week where maybe your teenage kid is acting up and you and your husband are fighting about it. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. I don't have kids. But whatever stressful situation comes up. And when life is giving you situational, stressful things, you do need to pay attention to that. Because last week, fasting might have went really well for you. But this week, you're like, why is it not going good? Like, why do I feel off my game? Why was that fast so challenging? Or why do I feel like just really crummy? You can turn around and go, what's up with my stress? That's cortisol. This week was really stressful for me. And now you have an answer. And so not that understanding changes it, but understanding does give you the power to feel like, oh, I'm at control. I know what's going on. I'll just push my fast, or I'll make it shorter. Or I'll take more AOD as an option if you happen to have AOD on stock. Those are things you can do. And it starts with your understanding that this all comes back to cortisol. So I thought that was a great question. And I thought it was an opportunity to bring it all together. And I do see some questions on the topic. Let's see. Robin, no worries if you can't get your camera on. Tony, my question about fat releasing and previous narcotics from surgeries, Novocaine and as anesthesia release into the body. I woke up and was lightheaded and woozy last week. Can you elaborate on your question, Tony? Are you asking that? Yeah, I'll go ahead and let you elaborate.
And I had asked it in the group when you had said topics, blah, blah, blah. Is the last week, one morning, I woke up and I felt really out of sorts and woozy. And I was just wondering if that is something that could be happening as while the fat is releasing, that those things could be releasing back into my body. Is it stored in the fat? Cause like I was drunk.
Fat does contain toxins, right? It is a known fact that just losing fat, not even doing a liver detoxification, just losing fat does at time release toxins. Losing fat does release toxins. Now, it's totally random at different points. It may or may not happen. And so that very well could be what you felt. It's really obviously impossible for me to determine, but if it was a one-off and it didn't continue to happen, right? Because my other thought is, was your blood sugar really low that morning? But if it was just a one-off and it didn't happen again, then that's a plausible explanation possibly of why you felt that.
Yeah. And I've been keeping my electrolytes up, and I've been doing a continuous glucose monitor just to get a baseline, and my levels have been at like in the hundreds.
Yeah. Then we can rule out that was a low blood sugar issue. That could bear, again, no way to know for sure. No way to know for certain. And if it doesn't continue to happen, I wouldn't worry about it, but that could be possibly what happened for sure. Hard to say.
Okay. I'll just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, if it keeps happening, that's concerning. One off could just be a detoxification thing.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
All right. Sam asked, what happened if you had a hysterectomy? So if you have had a hysterectomy, all that means is you just have low levels of sex hormones. So as far as what we're talking about right now, it doesn't necessarily change anything that we're talking about. I haven't had enough probably hysterectomy patients to see in the program to see if I've noticed a difference. So I can only speculate if having a hysterectomy changes what I talked about earlier as far as the experience of fasting and what to do as a woman. So all I can say for certain is just I would still apply the same rule, pay attention to your body and see if there's any issue that comes up during certain times of that cycle. Because even if you've had a hysterectomy, you still have adrenal glands, and adrenal glands still produce those hormones, just to a much lesser degree. This fat stores toxins. Yep. We talked about that. What about lipedema fat? Is there hope to burn that? Depends what's triggering your lipedema. Lipedema is obviously a condition that is awful for anybody that has it. And I look at lipedema as more of a symptom of other things going on, not an actual condition itself. It's just a particular symptom presentation. And so the question is, why do you have this? Some people have it and it's just a genetic thing. Other people have it and it's a complication or a side effect. I certainly am no expert in lipedema. I've had people get better, and I've had people and their health improves and the lipedema doesn't change. So it's definitely more of a complex thing that I don't have any direct guidance for you guys with, unfortunately. So yes, some hope for sure, Christine, but I definitely wouldn't say that this is going to fix it for sure or for certain. Robin, besides diminishing appetite, does tirzepatide work cellularly, say that word pretty fast, in reducing fat? Yeah, tirzepatide's pretty fascinating. There's actually a lot going on. The question is, what are GLP-1 medications doing? Cecily, this will be its own topic. This is a good topic. What are GLP-1s doing besides suppress appetite? All GLP-1s, including semaglutide, tirzepatide, and now the new one, retatrutide, which I'm going to try here. I finally got the bottle, so I'll be trying that, letting you guys know what I think. All GLP-1s besides suppressing appetite are also reducing insulin resistance. So don't forget that, because that's really important to understand. Out of all the sciencey things that I get into, if there's one that I want you guys to understand, it's insulin resistance and how insulin resistance leads to chronically elevated insulin levels. I want you to understand that connection. You don't have to know why or how, just know that it does that, and then know what elevated insulin levels are doing to you. Elevated insulin levels are the reason why obesity happens. Elevated insulin levels are what's creating the diabetic situation. It is poor metabolic health in essence, because when you have elevated insulin levels all the time, you have this constant grow. How does the signal grow and store actually manifest? It slows down your metabolism, because I can grow faster if I'm not burning too many energies. I could make you more hungry. I need to make you more hungry. I need more energy to grow, right? This is all common sense reactions from a signal that's saying grow, which is why when people say hormones don't matter and it's all about calories, they're just wrong. I don't know how else to say that. But yeah. And okay, so then Robin, the second part of your question is specifically about tirzepatide. Tirzepatide does do a little bit extra than semaglutide. So I was actually studying in particular this one aspect of tirzepatide, which is pretty fascinating. So semaglutide, we call a GLP agonist, and there's a whole bunch of GLP-1 receptors throughout the body. Tirzepatide has that second mechanism of action called GIP. Your fat cells, I just learned this recently, your fat cells have GIP receptors on the surface of the fat cells. There is no GLP-1 receptors on the fat cells. So what I've learned is that tirzepatide is activating these GIP receptors on the fat cells. They're activating various enzymes like hormone-sensitive lipase, which actually improves mobilization of fat, which I thought was really interesting. AOD is doing that.
If you are enjoying watching these clips from my coaching calls and my community, guys, I have thousands of like-minded individuals who are kicking ass. Click that link, I'll put it in the description of the video, where you can set up a free consultation to discuss exactly how my individuals are achieving lasting weight loss utilizing microdosing and intermittent use protocols. Now, back to the video.
So semaglutide and AOD is a great combination. Tirzepatide, though, has a little bit of the, I guess you can say, AOD-like effect on its own, which I thought was interesting. Of course, there's no way to compare head to head. I would still say AOD is the bomb, is the best fat mobilizing option that we have. But I just wanted to share that with you guys because I thought that was pretty fascinating. And I'm very sad that we will lose tirzepatide soon. I haven't heard any updates since the last 2 or 3 weeks when we guys talked about that. Still, Eli Lilly is still now seeing no shortage. They're selling to consumers now directly, which is very fascinating too. And I haven't heard any update from the FDA or anybody that understands what's going on in the FDA one way or the other, just that they're still in process of whatever they do in terms of making their final, yes, we agree, or no, that's not true. Eli Lilly, it's still a shortage. Sarah, I'm on a reset now, 2,000 calories a day. I have not gained any weight. Fantastic. I'm not surprised, Sarah, because we talked about how many calories you're burning a lot, an unknown amount. So do I increase it? Yes. Keep going. The point of the reset is to get your metabolism as fast as it could be. And in your case, because you're doing a lot of exercise, it's probably going to be higher than your average person for your age and height and all that and activity level. So we just want to keep going, about 200 calories a week, and keep doing that until we start gaining. And also paying attention to your symptoms, as always, with the reset, ensuring that nothing's getting worse. And you may or may not notice some of these symptoms improving. That's a piece of it too, as well. I have not heard of that inflammatory condition, but I can tell you that most inflammatory autoimmune conditions will get better with what we're doing. Also, I would add LDN to the equation. Adding LDN and doing flow, I have yet to come across an actual inflammatory or metabolic condition that doesn't improve. So definitely keep us posted on that, Stacey. Okay. So want to get into, yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. There's not a ton to say about PCOS. Nothing changes for PCOS. Understanding that while PCOS has such a unique clinical presentation, the reality, the increase in male androgens, male hormone production in females causing the unwanted side effects, this is all downstream of insulin resistance. And so a lot of doctors get fixated on trying to focus and test and do something about the male hormone production, but you just fix the insulin resistance. All you got to do is fix the insulin resistance and reduce inflammation, which is the same thing that you need to do for everybody else. This is what everybody needs to focus on. So nothing changes. I would say just be aware that if you have PCOS, it's like having diabetes in terms of these conditions are heavy insulin resistance. And so sometimes the results start smoothly like everybody else, but more often my PCOS, my diabetics, they have slower weight loss in the beginning, but we're just fixing the insulin resistance. We're just laying the foundation. And then bam, at some point I notice weight loss picks up. So that's really the only thing to be aware of. when you have PCOS. Blindness, GLP-1 medication. So yeah, that was a big thing. Obviously, it's still a big thing. From what I've been able to gather, knows for certain. All we know at this point is there's a correlation and there's no causation that's been determined. It's just a correlation, which means what it means maybe we should be concerned is what that means, right? I'm definitely not going to sit there and say, because it's not causative, we should just not even worry about it. No, that's not the best approach. But from what I've listened to a couple podcasts with a couple experts in the GLP-1 space, because they're all trying to make sense of it right now. Like, how's that possible when we have this medication that's doing all these amazing things? How could it just randomly cause blindness, right? I would say the most convincing conclusion that people are making that I agree with would be, yes, having a personal history with diabetic retinopathy increases your risks. So that's definitely one thing to be aware of. And that's a small category. Like, a lot of us here in this group are not even diabetic. But yes, if you have a history of diabetic retinopathy, maybe you should not take GLP-1s. Is some people would say, though, it's fine still, right? It's just a risk tolerance thing to consider. But people that have a history of diabetic retinopathy already have some circulatory damage, some atherosclerotic damage to that nerve in the eye. And then all of a sudden they start the GLP-1, there's a rapid change in weight, there's a rapid change in blood pressure, and therefore there's a rapid decrease in blood flow. And so essentially it just happens to be a consequence that unfortunately leads to blindness. Even though the whole overall body's getting better, it's just a bad combination of circumstances. While the body's getting better, that particular nerve is ready to go. And unfortunately, that's a really bad thing to happen because that causes blindness. So it is like it's a really unfortunate, rare circumstance that doesn't change the fact that overall the entire body's getting better. So for me, the takeaway is if I had diabetic retinopathy, I wouldn't take these medications. And that's really it. There's obviously a ton more research that needs to come out for them to draw any more conclusions. Even that is just a theory. All we know is there's a correlation. All right.
Your body's holding on the fat. It's fucking, oh my God, it's scared to leave and it doesn't know when it's real is going to get even. Use your logical brain. Ask yourself, does that make any fucking sense? Really? Calories are energy and you cannot create energy from nothing. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever seen an overweight prisoner of war? What about those people in Naked and Afraid? They're literally waiting for the next fucking cockroach meal. They wither away week by week because they're fucking hungry and they're literally hunting for their fucking food. Is their body holding on to fat? Oh, no, it's not. Humans grossly underestimate.
Me laugh, right? It really did. She's not the first person to use those arguments about starvation mode. And I think it definitely does not invalidate anything that I've taught you guys. It's just an incorrect understanding of what I'm trying to communicate. And apparently a lot of people are communicating this idea to her and other people too as well. So yeah, starvation mode is not something where you're literally in a camp, to quote her, eating 0 calories and not losing weight. Never said that. Never said that. And so anybody who is in starvation mode, if you're eating 0 calories, you will still lose weight. Starvation mode is a powerful mechanism in the body, but it ain't that powerful. It can't keep you from losing weight when you're eating 0 calories. So she's just not understanding I don't know. I guess I don't know exactly who's telling her that's what we're trying to say. I don't know who thinks starvation mode would be an excuse that, yeah, I'm not losing weight when I'm eating 0 calories. So it's like a dramatic response to we're not saying that. What we're saying with starvation mode is you're eating half the amount of calories that you should be eating, right? Which is actually still, without GLP-1 medications, still very challenging to do. To successfully over time maintain an intake that's half the amount of energy that you normally would have without GLP-1 medications, that required some pretty mental toughness because your body is screaming hunger. But with GLP-1 medications, it's like you don't even notice it. So starvation mode is happening way more often. But I don't know how many people are on GLP-1s that are literally not eating any calories. So her point is a mute point because that's not what we're saying at all. Starvation mode is a situation in which the metabolism slows down dramatically, but we're still eating 1,000 calories. So therefore you're not losing weight, because if you were burning 2,000 and eating 2,000 at a weight maintenance, and now you're eating 1,000 and burning 1,000 because your metabolism slowed down, you're still at a weight maintenance. So that's all starvation mode is. And so if anybody sees things like her or anybody else trying to invalidate, so I can continue playing it or not, but basically her point is everybody wants to make an excuse that starvation mode is the reason why they're not losing weight. But in reality, you just need to count your calories better. You aren't under eating, you are overeating. You think you're under eating, but you're really just making an excuse. That's what she's saying. And truth be told, in the non-GLP-1 world, I could maybe see her point, because like I said, getting into starvation mode is really challenging. Whether it's 1,000 calories, half, or whether it's 0, your body is screaming hunger. Look at bodybuilders. They'll tell you that they'll 4 weeks before the show, they're exhausted, they're tired, they're obsessing about food, they're dreaming about food, they're salivating, they're thinking about food. It's on their mind because the bodies eat and they're still not at 0 calories. Maybe in the non-GLP-1 world, there might be some truth to this overgeneralization that she's making very dramatically, that you're not starving. This idea of eating more it's not true. But for you guys, the GLP-1 space, starvation mode happens all the time, because a lot of you guys on my first call, you remember when we sat down and talked about calories, and I told you, holy crap, you're barely eating 1,000. And you were like, what? I can't eat any more than that. That's the craziness about GLP-1 medication. So thank you for sharing that, Sammy. I thought that made me laugh, and I thought I would share that with you. So let's see. She must be doing something right on social media, though, because she's got a massive following. So, that's funny. Let's see. Christine, there's young body training kids same as her. It's annoying. Yeah, it's just a lack of not understanding the science and generalizing. Robin says, been hearing a lot about heavy metals and how they can prevent you from losing weight. What are your thoughts and on that, and how do you treat that? Toxicity is a real thing. And being exposed, whether it's heavy metal toxins, whether it's mold, there's a lot of different forms of toxicity. I've seen some people have reactions to perfumes that they had no idea their body was so sensitive to. It was completely jacking them up. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are around us everywhere. And so we obviously don't do that sort of support in my program. That'd be a functional medicine program. And so I can give you guys, and will be slowly adding some basic detoxification stuff to try to help you guys as much as I possibly can. But liver detoxification is generally a good thing to do, but starting your liver detoxification in the middle of a weight loss program, in the middle of everything else, might not be the smart thing to do. It's always generally recommended that you improve your gut health first before you do a detoxification program. And mind you, we already said you're losing body fat. You are already throwing toxins out in the body. So to ask your body to, usually when you do a functional medicine detoxification program, you're not trying to lose weight at the same time, because it's just a lot to ask for your body. So no, I wouldn't recommend anybody tries to do a liver detoxification during your weight loss program. And if you're at a maintenance and you're in my coaching and you're wondering, can I do it? Maybe, but get a gut healing protocol first. Do a good gut healing program first, because you need to be able to effectively poop out the toxins that you detoxify. Otherwise you reabsorb it, and sometimes can make you worse. So, and then heavy metals is its own specialized type of detoxification within general liver detoxification. Heavy metal is a whole other beast. I didn't even do that in my specialty when I helped people. You want to work with a specialized, if you actually need to do a heavy metal detoxification, you want to be working with a functional practitioner that has experience helping people chelate heavy metals, because that's a whole nother beast. People with prior mercury amalgams is an example. Mercury amalgams, I think, are very toxic, and unfortunately just a thing that's not talked about. And so, yeah, that's a whole nother beast. And you want to work with somebody that knows what they're doing with that. I have a very general gut healing program. Yeah, Scarlett. It's a protocol. It's a special, and it's all on the welcome to form. There's a link. It's a very restrictive diet. It's a very restrictive anti-inflammatory diet. And you add some powerful gut healing supplements. And that's what you do. You just do that for about 6 to probably more like 12 weeks, actually. And then you can add something like BPC 157. You do that for about 3 months. And that could be a really transformative gut healing program. Should you be concerned about your bilirubin approaching high, increasing? I would have to look at your blood work to see what it was before and how much it increased. Definitely something to keep your eyes on because it might be a problem, but it might not be. So I would just get some more blood work, maybe a little bit sooner, just to look at that again and make sure that next time it's not continuing to increase. You can apply that logic to any other markers in general, as if you see it trending up, but it's not trending to a bad area. Is this just part of the normal ebb and flow, or do I actually have a problem and maybe I can catch it early? All right. Veronica, did you have any specific questions about retatrutide? I don't think, I mean, I haven't used it myself, but from everything I've seen, retatrutide is not this, I'm sure it's going to be awesome. I know it's going to be awesome, but it's not going to be this thing that I'm like, oh my God, guys, you got to do this. You guys know that I don't like to do that to you in general. Will retatrutide be better than tirzepatide? Tirzepatide was a lot better than semaglutide for sure, but semaglutide was still really good. I haven't tried it yet myself. The clinical data looks pretty good, but tirzepatide and semaglutide were already getting such good results. With our protocol, I haven't felt like I needed this additional GLP-1 to really push the envelope. So that's why I haven't really gotten crazy with you guys. Oh, you guys got to try this. I know it's exciting. I'll let you guys know if I personally think it was so much more intense than tirzepatide, but of course, my anecdotal experience is my anecdotal experience. That's limited for what it may or may not apply to you guys.
If you guys enjoyed watching this video, then you're going to want to check this one out. I get into a deep dive over GLP-1 medications, peptides, and lasting weight loss, guys. We'll see you later.